Hey everyone, so the next section was called You Are Powerful, You Are Beautiful, and it was about, in the book, it's primarily about some of my background, which I'm going to go into in a little bit more detail too. In these videos, you'll learn a little bit more about me. This will be a more brief one, and then I'm going to do a real full meaty background of who I am video for those who are interested in the finer details later on. But essentially, I am what many would call a wizard, a witch, a magician, a warlock, a shaman, a medicine man, Neo from the Matrix, a hacker of my reality. Reality to me is what it is to myself. I do not rely on outside sources for my reality. I do not rely on individuals telling me it is true or not true. Whatever is true to my soul is true to me, and that is how I operate, and that is how everyone can operate. You don't need to just stop believing because somebody tells you to stop believing. It is up to you and it is up to choice. I have been doing this work since I was a kid. I didn't know I was doing it as a child. I um, started having dreams. Probably the earliest I remember is dreams of ETs coming to me and taking me away in ships, and thinking to myself, oh, when I go to sleep, I will be able to go places with my friends. I always thought they were dreams. I never thought they were real. And that became more apparent later on that they were actually real. But one of the first times that I really woke up was when I was about in seventh, eighth grade. I started seeing my spirit animal, my power animal, my totem, called a, not called, it is a tiger. It is a tiger totem, which in indigenous cultures is like a spiritual protector, depending on the culture that you come from. And it started to appear to me while I was riding my bike through the woods uh, in a state park. We had a country store near a state park, and I would ride my bike through and had a lot of experiences because I started spending a lot more time in nature. Anytime I could get away from the country store, I would get away because all we did was work. We spent our summers and most of our life from eighth grade through my senior year working at this country store, being around my father, who was not the most pleasant person, is the nicest way to put it. Not the most pleasant person to be around. Alcoholic, abuse, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, and we would just work our summers away and stuff. So anytime we got a chance, I fled into the marshlands, into the woods, wherever I could, and that's where some of my first Sasquatch sightings that I remember occurred. And I always thought they were shadows. I did find a print at one point too, and I just thought, oh, that, I dismissed it. It was one of those things where I was walking through the woods. I stumbled randomly, no trail, nothing. Walking through the woods, stumbling around, pushing through bushes, and found a large print bigger than myself. And I have very big feet because I'm tall. At this point, I'm already over 6 foot tall. When I was a young, in high school, and uh, wearing size 13 shoes, I think, and it was far bigger than my foot. And just looking at it, went, oh, that can't be, that's definitely not human, but that can't be real. And then the path faded. Normal Sasquatch, mythology of footprints appearing and disappearing and that sort of thing. But the interesting part is I was riding my bike through the forest one day and came around a corner and saw clear as day, no joke, clear as day, saw a tiger standing in the woods. And I still can remember it to this day, seeing the tiger standing in the woods 20 feet from my bicycle off the road, looking at me, but I could see through it. And that was the difference. I could see through it. It was almost not there, but I could see it too physically. Like it was there, but it wasn't there. Scared the bejesus out of me, slammed on the brakes, turned around, booked out. From that moment on, I From that moment on, I started seeing it everywhere. Everywhere I go, I would walk from school to I didn't just work at the country store, I worked at a grocery store. If I wasn't at the country store, I was working at the other job. And I would walk from school to the grocery store and I would watch the tiger follow me down the fence line of the school. We would go from, in 8th grade, we would walk from the middle school building to the high school building, and I would watch it walk the fence line, and I could feel it looking at me, trying to say hi, and I had no idea what was going on. And it was a friend who brought up the idea, and to this day I still don't remember why I confided in her, but brought up the idea that it was a totem animal, and from that moment on everything clicked. And I went, oh, and I just accepted it, and the tigers started appearing more and coming around in my journey. But I didn't tell anybody else. I knew I saw spirits. I knew I could intuit things. I knew I was having prophetic visions and knowing things before they happened. But if I told anybody, I knew in the family I was in that there would be a lot of consequences that I did not want to face. Not good consequences, as many know from speaking with their families who don't agree with the things that they're experiencing, and especially when you live in an abusive one. And so I went on the journey alone. I spent a lot of time by myself. Some of the best times that I remember were by myself in the woods, or even stocking shelves in the grocery store, or doing what we called facing. Facing was pulling. You take a aisle of the grocery store where all the products pushed back into the shelving, and you pull it forward to line it up so people can see what it is. And it's one of the simplest things to do, but it gives your mind a lot of time to think and ask questions about the universe and wonder what's going on. So I did a lot of that, asking a lot of questions, pondering, thinking, trying to figure out what was going on with me, why I could see things, why others couldn't, all those types of things. And then fast forward to college, and I enter the college environment where there is a library that is beyond the size of the library I had ever experienced. And it was a small college library too, but to me it was very magical in the content that it had. I was able to study all kinds of ancient societies, archaeology, mythology, all these kinds of things that I hadn't been able to pursue through my own library or even knew about, because our school was a small country school with a very, very small library. And the public library was the same. We just didn't have access to information. And at this time, it's the internet this is 2003 when I went to college. And in 2003, a lot of stuff Facebook wasn't even a thing. Facebook was starting out essentially, and with just colleges, but most of the technology we have today, for those of you who have lived with the internet all your childhood, there was a time where I didn't have internet. I don't think we had internet until, I don't know, probably 98, and it was dial-up. And if you remember dial-up, you don't really download anything with dial-up. But college was a magical place. It was a time I could explore information, figure out new things, and learn about all these, Atlantis, Lemuria, all these different places, all these societies and places that were confused as Atlantis, and developing. I was away from my family, which when it comes to raising your vibration, one of the things I talk about is getting away from those who are holding you back, and having solitude. And I remember my friends in college saying, the first year of college, all you did was read. You would just sit there and read for hours. I went, yeah, because I was I was looking for knowledge. They didn't understand. I was completely off the wall to a lot of them, and I could feel it too. I could feel it, like, he's kind of going crazy type of thing, but I wasn't. I was waking up more in an environment where people were even though they were more open-minded than where I came from, they just weren't awake yet. And through college, I ended up seeing more totems, having experiences, and I moved in at 18. I moved into a house by myself for a little while before getting a roommate, and then I kept seeking and found some teachers in a group in the area I lived in, and spent some time with them learning mediumship, learning all these different things, and trying to figure out what was going on and what was real, what wasn't real, what my experience was, why it was happening, all of this. I never suspected I was seeing Sasquatches, working with extraterrestrials or faeries, or all this. It was years later that all came to fruition, that I realized, fairies really were real, and I started working with them, and then started realizing all the other stuff that I experienced truly was real. Even though I knew it in my mind, there was this part of me that just kept doubting because I didn't have more awareness of it. And there, even in those spiritual circles, there were people who did not believe in different aspects of these things. So fast forward a little bit further, I started dating a woman who was terrible for my vibration. I knew better. I got out about 2 years into it, cut the relationship off, left, and then Spirit tested me, brought her back in, even though I knew there was a lot of manipulation and lying going on, and intuitively knew that. I ended up back in the relationship and ended up stuck in a cycle for another 9 years. I was with her for 11 years. And in doing that, I ended up seeking a lot of help from Spirit to change my life because I wasn't happy. I didn't even know what happiness was. I wasn't taught it as a kid. And I ended up going into counseling, which was a whole ordeal. I'll talk about it in a different video. But I ended up going into counseling because I was just depressed and sad and just thought life was miserable type of thing. And I went in, and she asked me, but my counselor asked me the first day, she was like, if you could change one thing with your life, what would it be? Without questioning it, I answered writing. I had no idea why I answered that way. Still don't to this day. It was just automatic. It was my soul speaking through me. It took about 5 years before she finally sat down and said, okay, you need to sit down and you need to write, and we're going to do this because every time we talk about this subject, that's what comes up. I had been working through things. I worked through my trauma with my father, my family, people that I was friends with, all this throughout that time. But then it came to a time where I had healed enough that I could go forward with the writing journey. So I spent a year writing ideas, came up with some ideas for books, and then I sat down, and in 2018, I think it was March, maybe February, March, I wrote, in 3 weeks, I wrote 3 books that I had ideas for. One of them I ended up rewriting completely 2 years later. The third one that I wrote became the first book I published, called Fury, part of the Fae Awakening series. And I ended up publishing it because my ex and others read it, and they were like, this is really good, you should publish this. I also didn't realize it would lead to more intuition and awareness. I don't think my partner of that time realized that either. I think they thought this was an escape route for them, which they had actually verbalized later on, that supporting my writing journey was a way for me to gain material abundance so they wouldn't have to, type of thing, which was a crazy thing to say to support your partner, that they were doing it out of a material gain thing. But so I went on this writing journey. I ended up writing, to date, I'm up to 7 fantasy books, with another on the way that I've been trying to shore up. But I wrote a bunch of fantasy books. But in the involvement of that was 2018. So 2019 comes. I started going to conventions. I put everything I have into going to conventions, shifting out of the 3D career into the creative career that I saw myself in, not realizing what was going to come next. And what was going to come next was another awakening. I had had awakening upon awakening upon awakening. I was awake in my relationship with my ex. She was a semi-awake person, I would say. She knew about energy and all these different things, but was very much in their darkness type of thing. But I kept having these speedy awakenings. My vibration was raising. I was trying to shift my diet, shift my career, shift my happiness, do all this stuff. And then my guides came to me, and they had been coming to me since before I had started counseling. They had been coming to me for since the time I was, so I started meditating when I was in college, and they worked with me a lot through that period of time for 4 years. And it probably when I was 24, 25, I stopped because I became clairaudient, and like super clairaudient, meaning I would hear thousands of voices. And so I stopped meditating because it was getting to be too much. And at that time, I didn't know anybody to help me out. I didn't know anybody to make sense of it. I had a friend who did help initially, but we parted ways. And then after that, it was like my community disappeared and I was on my own. I was in a spiritual solitude cycle until I met my partner that of that time. And I just stopped meditating. And so around the time I was 24, 25, they came to me and kept saying, meditate, 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 and I wouldn't do it. About 3 years later, 2013, I think is when I had moved, I sat down, started meditating. The clairaudience came back, the visuals of beings came back, all this stuff. Too overwhelming, shut it down, didn't do it. Went into counseling, healed, went through the creative cycle, not realizing creativity actually raises your vibration and helps you clear more trauma and helps you connect to spirit. And the problem with that is you're kind of forced into awaking more. You can't shut it, you get to a point where you can't shut it down. And 2019 came, was doing great, building a writing business, could see it, could see the income flourishing every time I went. I was learning my lessons. I put everything into it. I had built a business for 15 years doing web development, freelancing, so I knew a lot of networking and how to do things. And I just went all in trying to figure it out. And so as I was trying to figure it out, the income was getting better. The first, most of the year I was in the red because I started with 2 books, and 2 books at conventions is not, 1 book is really hard to make profit from at a convention. 2 books is still hard, and part of it's because you need 3 books or more for a series to bundle together to get people to buy more quantity and that sort of thing. So by the end of the year, I had 4 books out, I believe. I know I had 3. I think I had 4 in December of that year. And when I released that 4th one, the income just tripled because people saw I had 4 books and were able to buy a bundle. And I went, yes, this is great. I'm going to be able to do this. I started booking conventions for 2020. Boom, COVID pandemic. Shut everything down. Luckily, I had been transitioning clients from my web business away, and luckily I was able to merge that, or not merge that, sorry. I was able to go back to them and say, hey, COVID pandemic's going on. Do you still have work for me? They all had work for me. Most of them didn't want me to leave. So I was able to survive 2020, pay my bills and all my requirements and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I moved. I went through a period at the end of 2019 where I needed to move. My ex moved to another city for a job, and we were waiting about 6 months to move with her and getting to a state where I could move knowing she was going to keep the job. So we waited the time. I moved in the end of February, right before they shut everything down. It was perfect timing. It was like spirit pushed me right into that apartment. And as soon as I got there, I realized she didn't want me there. I realized I woke to a lot of things because I had solitude from her for another 4 or 5 months of driving down on weekends and seeing her while she was doing this work from October to February, and woke up to a lot of stuff. But we were in the middle of a pandemic and I couldn't get out. I felt trapped, and I also felt in this state of I have to be in this situation because that's just what life is. So I made the best of it. My guides went, okay, you're here, you're miserable, you're stuck in your apartment. She's gone, she's still working 80 hours a week. You're here, your development's low, you know, you don't have a lot to do, meditate. And I kind of fought them on, like, meditate. Sat down, started meditating, boom, instantly. Beings were coming to me, everything, because I had healed, because I had done all this inner work through counseling and all this other stuff. It's like it was a lot easier. But beings started coming to me. And then they started bringing me ETs and telling me, these are ETs and you're going to remember things. And I started remembering and seeing imagery in all this stuff, where I sat down and I started seeking again. I had not seeked in 10 years. I had worked with Fae in that time. I had figured out faeries were real and worked with them. I had worked with all kinds of fairies. I'm talking pixies, trolls, ogres. I had a griffin land on my car one time. Giants. All these beings people think aren't real are very real. I never thought ETs were around. I had thought Sasquatch. Like, I had really kind of like in the back of my mind, like, Sasquatch is real, but I wasn't sure. And so as I'm meditating, they're bringing me more awareness, and I start seeking again, and I find this documentary and I watch it, and within, I think it's called Hangar One, or something like that on Netflix, and I'm watching it. I go take a nap, and instantly in the nap I'm transported back to a memory of being taken to a ship and operated on with a loving Zeta being, or Zeta-like being, beside me, holding my hand. Can remember feeling their skin, can remember them holding the hand, looking down at me. And on the windows of my apartment, I had almost shifted into like a viewing gallery of a hospital, but you know, of an ET ship with other different types of Zeta beings, who they've now called themselves Zeta Primes when I've seen them. Big, massive heads, very, very scary, intimidating energies. And I woke up and I was just pulsing with fear. After years, I had a client who was a spiritual guide, and I called her, and I had for years been trying to reach out, but could never bring myself to send the email, because I was like, no, I don't need to do this right now. Something would always stop me. I reached out. I was like, hey, I really need your help. I just have a question. I told her my journey. I told her things people didn't know. And I was like, I'm now starting to have memories of being on ships and operated on, of being with ETs, and I'm starting to see them in my meditations, and guides are saying they're real. And she went, yeah, all that's real. And she asked me one question. She went, when it came to fear, she asked me this question. She was like, what do you have to be afraid of? And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, you're still here. They put you back. You're healthy. You're happier. You're experiencing. You, as far as you know, you haven't been harmed. So what do you have to be afraid of? And within an instant, all the fear around ETs completely disappeared. Everything. All of it. And I'm talking fear that was debilitating, to where I couldn't watch documentaries on abductions. I couldn't watch. There's a video called The Fourth Kind with Mila Jovovich, based on actual footage and psychiatry sessions. There are other shows and books and things I couldn't, if it had to do with abductions, I could not process it. My body would, within 5 minutes, my body would go into a physical panic, and I'm talking a panic that I cannot even put into words to explain to people how devastating and paralyzing this panic is. Within moments, it disappeared. From that moment on, all I did was work with ETs. And they said, now that you understand, we are bringing everyone to you if you do this work. We want you to meditate, we want you to experience, and if you would, we would like you to write a book. I'd always wanted to write a natural spirituality book about my fairy experiences and how I connect with them. And I had tried 3 or 4 times, and every time Spirit blocked it. I had even wrote a couple drafts and looked at them, read them, and like, this just isn't right, this isn't right. And kept thinking I needed more, there was something missing. And there was. It was my vibration wasn't high enough, and I wasn't working with all the beings I was supposed to be working with. So then I do this work, and they're telling me, okay, you're going to write this book. You're going to write 3 books. You're going to write your fairy experiences book that you've always wanted to write, your intuitives workbook, which is the natural spirituality book you've always wanted to write, and then you're going to write an experiences book, and you're going to write it about ET experiences and all these other ones. And I went, oh, cool. And they're like, that's all we want you to do. And in my soul, that felt like my mission. It felt like I was put here on earth to write these books. I had known that since I was a kid, that I wanted, or since I was like a kid, meaning like 18, that I wanted to write these books. And I did this work, and for 6 months, probably, it was at least 6 months. I can't remember the timeline off the top of my head, but at some point I started writing the Fairy Experiences book, which once I did the work with them, it's like it flowed easily. So I wrote that book, then I wrote my Intuitives workbook, and then I kept saying, and this, I know this bothered, like, it's not something I should have said in this sense, but at the same time, I'm very honest and open with my partners about everything I'm thinking and feeling, because I believe in communication. And I said, I feel like this ET book is the purpose of my life, and once that's done, nothing else matters. Like, my soul mission is complete. If I stay, if I go, it doesn't matter. I finished that book, and finishing that book was a weight off my shoulder. It was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Feeling like, okay, the work is done, it will get out there. I posted it on Amazon, published everything, felt like complete. During that time, they kept saying, we're sending everyone to you. They met ETs, fairies, all these other beings. I didn't understand what that meant until now, sitting here, where they meant sending everyone to you, as far as people too. How they were sending people to me to validate their experiences, wake them up with my energy, and help them on their journey. But after that book, they kept saying, you're chained, and it felt like I was chained. Like, you're chained, you're bound, there's work to be done. And I kept getting offers to exit. I'll get into those in another story, but finally I was doing more work with a Navajo spirit, or with a death goddess, and the death goddess introduced me to all these spiritual beings, and then a Navajo spirit came and said, go to New Mexico. We need you to go to New Mexico. And she wanted me to go out there to learn about mass death and what the energy feels like of enormous death in one area. So I did. And at the same time, my ETs were like, ooh, you're going to New Mexico. We're going to take advantage of this, and we're going to teach you some stuff too. So I ended up having tons of experiences, which I turned into the book called The Raven's Way, and wrote about all that. And they kept saying things about my ex while I was out there, and all these questions and different things. And when I got back, I realized they were preparing me. When I got back, everything that happened with my ex, and again, that's a longer story, but there were a lot of lies and manipulations that I had known throughout the years intuitively, because I was awake, and done nothing about. And then Spirit started bringing me proof, started forcing proof of all this stuff to a head as I raised my vibration. It was like they were trying to get me out of this situation. And I came back, and it hit a headway again. there was nothing on that. It was just like, I need to be out of this relationship. And again, um, it's a long story, and I'll get to that in another video. But it is this whole idea of, I was in a relationship eating my energy and not beneficial to my vibration, and so I left. We decided that it would be best for me to leave, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was waking and forcing her to face her demons, and she did not want to face them at all, never did. And the more I rose in vibration, the more it was like the universe was forcing her to face herself. And it became one of those things where it's like, I can help you if you're willing to heal. If not, I need to leave. And she went, I think you should leave. And I went, okay, fine, I'm good. And I left. Best thing I ever did for this journey. If you're in a relationship that I'll do a video on that and everything I went through. But if you're in that type of relationship, one of the best things you can do is just walk away. Nobody who is manipulative, lying to you, abusive is worth your energy and time to try to heal. If it's not. You are more worthy and deserving and valuable to the universe than that, and you deserve happiness. And that starts with taking care of yourself. So I left. I'm talking within 2 days of being at my parents', my guides showed me the cord between us shattered. They broke it. I didn't know about cord cutting. Everything I've learned, I don't know labels. I don't know technique names. I don't know any of this stuff. I was talking to a friend the other day. I'm like, I can't even tell you. Like, there were, for years, I knew the chakras existed, and I knew which ones like did what based on my guides, but I could not tell you anything about them from a human standpoint, because everything I learned is from my guides. I knew about twin flames. I did not know that was a word. I did not know that was a human thing that existed. My guides had given me a concept, and I was like, oh, okay. And I just had this non-labeled concept with me. But I didn't know about cord cutting or anything of that nature. And they came to me and they like poof, broke the cord. And I was like, oh, okay, what the heck's going on? And in that moment, I watched the cord explode. And my guides came to me and they were like, you are now free. You are now unchained. You are unleashed. You made the choice and you can move forward. And then they started going, we have more work for you to do. And that work entails more books, speaking opportunities, helping people, all these other things if you want it. Now, to be very clear, if I stayed with her, a lot of that would have come. It would have been a lot more difficult. But I had also seen an exit at one point on that timeline where when I exited, somebody actually shot me and like broke into the house and shot me. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And because I do time travel work and timelines and all that. And in those moments, I felt so relieved. And I remember looking at the person, and even though they were angry with me and me waking people and shifting the world, I was like, thank you. I'm free now. I'm absolutely free, because I was still in that relationship, still in that negative cycle, still in all that. So it's very important that if you're in those negative spaces and negative energetic spaces, that you take care of yourself first. You take care of yourself first, and everything else comes together. You will free yourself. You will be able to learn more and do more without the energy vampirism of another person holding you back. So that's very, very important. And again, something I'll talk about in another video for those interested more in that topic. But they came to me, they gave me all that information. They said, you're unchained, you're unleashed. And then we started working. We started doing more ET work. We started working on spirit art. I didn't know spirit art was going to become a thing. I just knew they started saying, sit down and draw the beings we send to you. And so I started doing that. I started going to conventions and gridding light. I started gridding my town in light and learning how to do that with Arcturian light technology. working with all kinds of gods and goddesses, forest beings, realizing a lot more about my journey, a lot more about the nature of the world, time travel, that I was a time traveler. They started bringing time travel guides to me to teach me about time and the nature of that. It's just phenomenal things with death work, with healing work, with as time travel again, ET planets and beings that I got into contact with, experiences out in nature, finding a Sasquatch clan down by my river, and all these different things. They started bringing me more because I freed myself, bringing me more and bringing me more, and went keep writing the books, keep doing this. And then came this time in January of, so it's now 2023. This is January of 2022. They sat down and they go, we want you to write a course. And I went, what are you talking about? A course. Very clear about the words. It is a class. It is a course. And I went, but I don't have anything like that to do. And as far as a platform or anything like that, they're like, don't worry about it. Just write it. And so we sat down. In a week, I had the outline and I wrote the book. And I wrote the book and I finished it and I went, oh, it's a book. And I went, okay. And it reads like a book. It reads like a spiritual book. But then I kept saying those words. It's a course. It's a class. It's a course. It's a class. What's going on? No idea. So about May of that year, I lost everything on Amazon because of, and that's a video for another time too, about how these corporations can control vibrational content. I lost everything because of a mistake they made and were refused to acknowledge. And they used a policy, line in their policy that basically says if they want to ban you, they can ban you. It doesn't matter what you did. They can just take everything down. So overnight, because they didn't like me publishing my, at the time it was called Raise Your Vibration. They didn't like me publishing my Raise Your Vibration book. They wiped out my entire library on Amazon of 20 books, exactly 20 at the time. My fantasy library, marketing books, my other stuff, everything I was trying to push people to on that platform. I lost my print publishing abilities, everything. Very big wake-up call. And so I knew, I was like, okay, I need to shift. Excuse me. I said I need to shift and I need to, I'm going to drink just a little bit. Like I said earlier in the previous videos, these are unedited because I do channels and stuff. So you might see me drink in that in future videos as well. And just tea, that sort of thing, tea or water. But I said I need to shift. I need to pull everything to myself so everything is on my platform. And I can utilize other companies, but they need to be smaller, independent companies, not these monster giant organizations who are trying to essentially control the world. And so I did that. I pulled everything off. You won't find my books anywhere but my website. That's it. Any services I do, they will only be on my website. That's it. There are some other platforms I've considered that are a little bit larger, but I haven't gone those routes yet as far as offering services in those places. For now, it's all inclusive on my website. And I think that's the future, is supporting people independently through their platforms to get away from these control structures. But in that shift, I lost everything. I couldn't print books for conventions. I couldn't sell people ebooks because everybody, like when people come to me for ebooks, maybe only 5% of people are willing to buy ebooks from me. They want to buy them from Amazon. It's astonishing how little people trust in the ability to buy books from independents. They want to do it through that platform. So I lost everything. I had conventions booked. They were restarting after the pandemic, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I shifted, and Spirit brought me a friend, very familial soul to me, Nicole Lodi, who many of you will know as on Instagram, she's the High Priestess 11. And on TikTok, it's like the High Priestess 1111, I think. But we connected, and during a convention, I asked her, I was like, Spirit's been asking me to do this work. She had given me a reading, and I don't do readings with anybody over 20 years. I did readings in my 20s, early 20s, with the group of mediumship I did, but I haven't done readings since then because I don't believe in getting readings all the time. You have everything you need within yourself. And Spirit kept saying, get a reading with her, get a reading with her. So I got a starseed reading, and she was accurate on the abilities and things that I have and all that. And I went, she knows what she's doing. We started talking, connected. And she said, I think this spirit art thing you've been working with is part of your path. So I asked her, can I draw for you? And at this show that I was at, I ended up drawing for her, another person that I met there, and I changed their life with the drawings that I did and the reading that I did. Completely changed it. And I drew for another, one or two other people. And in that moment, I sent them off to Nicole, and she came back with, oh my God, I can't believe you drew him, and showed me one of her patron gods that she works with that I had drawn, and the messaging resonated. And I knew immediately I had to go the spirit art route. And so I did. I took up my authentic self. I went the spirit art route, and I realized this is what I love doing, is spiritual art, writing my books, getting information out there, and working with all these beings and helping people understand that beings of all realms exist, not just angelics, but beings of all realms, faeries, gargoyles, dragons, all these different places, and that they all deserve love and light, and that they all deserve humans to work with them and accept them as we raise our vibration and shift the world. And in this process, I understood too that and if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes because the book has linear information, trying to keep it linear. I kept seeing this process away, or this path opening to me through the spirit art, which was adding more spirit art services, and I could finally shift away from 3D work, which was all I wanted. I knew I needed that for my happiness, so I could travel more, I could do more. And then doing the reels with Instagram, building that following and all the support that people pulled out, I was like, this is my authentic self. This is who I am. This is how I become happier. And this is how I get into my power, my king power, become, the whole purpose of this chapter is called You Are Beautiful, You Are Powerful. You are beautiful. You are powerful. You have to embrace your authentic self to feel that, to get that happiness, to get that power. Embrace yourself, trust yourself, believe in your experiences, believe the universe is magical, believe that there is help out there and that you're never alone, that spirit guides are with you, whether they're human guides, ETs, dragons, whatever. All these beings are around us. All of them are helping, and we are all beautiful and powerful, and we're co-creators on earth, creating heaven on earth. And so the purpose of this book is to help you get into your beauty, your power, to find your happiness, and to embrace yourself and live freely. Live a free, happy life the way you were meant to live it, by raising your vibration and putting you in touch with these other beings. That's the purpose of the book and the course. It is now being turned into a course. If you read the book, you'll find that a lot of the information I've talked about, even in this video, isn't actually in the book because I wrote it over a year ago, and I'm now creating the course. So those of you watching this are going to find a lot more value if you've already read the book. And if you've read the book, you're going to find more of a, book style learning, if that's the way you learn. I personally learn from books, which is why it's taken me so long to do a course, because the audio and video isn't necessarily my thing. But the interesting part is I worked with a shaman who is one of the few readers I ever believed was accurate and knew what she was doing. I had a reading from her, and I was probably 22, maybe 23. And she had said, and that's all I did. I did one reading with her, and then we parted ways. She was at the spiritual store that I walked into. And she had said, your path is in books. She's like, I see books around you everywhere in video. And I never understood the video part until I started doing Instagram and seeing all the videos I was putting out. I'm like, people are responding to this. This is working. So now I'm doing these videos because I feel comfortable. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have been beautiful to me, who have told me I am powerful and beautiful and loved, because now you are going to reap the benefits of these concepts and learning them, which is to bring yourself into your own beauty, into your own power, raise your vibration, and connect with other beings. So please enjoy the content moving forward. As I said, some of the subjects I touched in this video on my background, it's 37 years of background shoved into 45 minutes of time. Over time, I'll release more content in more detail about those different experiences and parts of my life to help those who are going through similar things. So stay tuned and move on to the next lesson, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you again for watching. You all have my love and gratitude.